Mr. Officer, your laughter is misplaced. You see, I am the plaintiff.
And I also happen to be your employer.
The courtroom smelled of old wood and disinfectant, like a place pretending to be clean. Maya Lennox sat still, hands folded, wrists trembling just enough to feel the echo of the cuffs that had bruised her skin a week ago. Her arrest for resisting a traffic stop had gone viral. But here, under the cold eyes of the court, the viral noise didn't matter. Officer Brent Calhoun lounged on the witness stand, his smirk slicing through the silence. She was agitated, he said, voice dripping with practiced calm. I feared for my safety, the gallery murmured. Maya stared at him, every muscle tight as a drawn bow. The judge's gavel struck once. Order. Brent turned his head, caught her eyes, and almost casually laughed. A low, mean sound. You people think cameras change the truth. That line landed like a blade. The courtroom froze. Her attorney whispered for her to stay calm, but Maya's heartbeat roared in her ears. The humiliation burned deeper than anger. It was memory, generations old, dressed in a modern uniform. Then the clerk entered from the side door, whispering something to the judge. Papers exchanged, brows lifted, a silence longer than law should allow. Judge Patel cleared his throat. Before proceeding, the court must acknowledge a disclosure. The defense firm representing the city has a new majority owner. Brent frowned, impatient. The judge looked at Maya. Ms. Lennox, is that correct? Her gaze didn't flinch. It is. Brent's smirk faltered. For the first time, uncertainty cracked through his arrogance. The courtroom lights seemed to shift, to bright, to revealing, and Maya finally smiled. The red and blue lights cut through the night like an accusation. Maya Lennox eased her car to the shoulder, her hands steady on the steering wheel. The dashboard clock read 11:42 p.m. She'd just left a late meeting downtown. Exhausted but content, the merger papers were nearly finalized. The siren died. Silence returned, heavy. A flashlight beam bounced across her rear window, bright enough to sting her eyes. She rolled the glass down halfway. Evening, officer. Brent Calhoun leaned in, tall, mid-40s, the kind of man who smiled like authority was his birthright. License and registration. She handed them over, voice calm. May I ask what the stop is for? Broken taillights. He circled the words like bait. Maya exhaled slowly. She knew both lights worked. Her assistant had the car serviced that morning. Still, she stayed quiet. Brent's beam lingered on her skin longer than necessary. You live around here? I own Lennox Technologies. Headquarters is 10 minutes away. His brow twitched. That's so. He disappeared to his cruiser. Minutes stretched. A chill crept up her arms. When he returned, his tone had shifted, colder, official. Step out of the vehicle. She hesitated. Officer, may I know? Step out. Dashcam light blinked red. She opened the door, heels crunching on gravel. Brent gestured toward the car's rear. See that? She looked. Both taillights glowed perfectly. He smirked. Guess it fixed itself. The air between them changed, charged, dangerous. Maya's voice stayed measured. Am I free to go? He stepped closer. Not yet. A body cam clicked on. You're resisting instructions. I'm not resisting. Then stop talking. She froze. His hand brushed his holster. Subtle, practiced intimidation. Traffic whooshed by. Indifferent. He reached for her wrist. She flinched back. That was enough. Turn around, he barked. Cold metal clamped her wrists. Her voice cracked. Officer, you're making a mistake. He leaned close, his breath hot against her ear. Lady, I don't make mistakes. I make reports. The camera caught everything. Her shock, his grin, the slam of the door. As he drove her away. Maya stared through the glass, city lights blurring into streaks. Every flash felt like proof, and none of it mattered yet. The morning after her release, the world already had an opinion. Maya woke to her phone, vibrating endlessly on the nightstand. Notifications stacked like debris, news alerts, hashtags, tagged posts, unfamiliar numbers. She blinked at the light of the screen. Black CEO detained in routine stop. A still frame from the arrest video froze her mid-flinch. Brent's hand gripping her arm. By noon, the video had over 2 million views. Her assistant, Kit, stood in the living room holding a mug of untouched coffee. It's everywhere. Maya, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, even LinkedIn. Maya rubbed her temples. So it's official. I'm public property. Kyra hesitated. People are outraged, but they're already arguing. Some say you provoked him. Because I spoke, because you exist in a Benz. Maya let out a dry laugh. America's favorite contradiction. Her PR consultant called next. The tone was surgical, polite, but cautious. Maya, we advise silence for now. Any emotional statement could affect investor confidence. The merger. I was assaulted. Lydia Altstan. But from a corporate standpoint, corporate Maya repeated. That's convenient language for fear. The call ended with a quiet, "We'll draft something safe." She turned on the television. The footage replayed in a loop. Brent's voice calm, her tone agitated. The moment his hand tightened, the echo of metal cuffs. Commentators debated proper police procedure. Not one mentioned dignity. Later that evening, her phone buzzed again. An unfamiliar number. Ms. Lennox. Yes, this is Officer Calhoun's department. Just calling to confirm your court date. Her grip tightened. You could have emailed. I thought you'd appreciate a personal touch. His voice was unmistakable. Silence. Then a chuckle. No hard feelings, right? Just the system doing its job. The line went dead. Her breath came shallow, her chest constricting. The arrogance wasn't just personal, it was institutional. He knew he was protected. That night, she couldn't sleep. The sound of the cuffs, that metallic snap, replayed like a pulse in her skull. She rose, went to her home office, and turned on her laptop. Footage, articles, legal documents, precedent cases. Her screen filled with evidence of repetition, names, faces, stories like hers, forgotten after the outrage cooled. Kyra texted at 2:47 a.m. Kyra, you okay? Maya, awake, working, Kira, on what? Maya, proof. Morning sunlight crept through the blinds, pale and unforgiving. Maya opened her email to a message from her board chair. We're monitoring the situation closely. Please remember that your actions reflect the company. Focus on optics, not emotion. Optics. She stared at the word until it blurred. Then she typed her reply. Understood. I'll handle it. But what she meant was, I'll own it. Later, as news anchors dissected her arrest from every angle, Maya called her lawyer, a quiet, precise man named Alan Weiss. I want this on record, she said. He sighed. It already is. No, I want a hearing. I want him in court. Alan hesitated. Maya, the system favors officers. Even with video, these cases fail, she finished. I know. That's why I'll prepare differently. Alan sounded wary. Meaning, she said, voice steady. I'll fight him on every front that exists. Legal, corporate, and public. If the system's blind, I'll make it see. There was a pause. Then, quietly, you understand what you're stepping into. She smiled without warmth. I built companies from silence, Alan. This time, I'm done being polite. That night, Maya drafted her own statement, short, unpolished, human. Accountability isn't optional. Silence protects power, not truth. I'll see this through. She posted it at midnight. Within minutes, it spread faster than the video. Supporters flooded her feed, but so did venom, anonymous profiles, slurs, veiled threats. Maya read each one, then closed the app. Her hand trembled, not from fear, but recognition. Every word confirmed what she already knew. Exposure came at a cost. Outside, the city buzzed, unaware of the shift beginning in her mind. For years she'd played the part, composed, polished, safe enough to lead, quiet enough to keep doors open. Now, those doors didn't matter, because the next one she planned to walk through was the courtroom, not as a victim, but as an architect. She turned off her phone, letting the dark reclaim the room. Tomorrow would start the reckoning. The courthouse smelled of coffee, old paper, and nerves. Maya adjusted the cuffs of her blazer, charcoal gray, sharp lines, deliberate armor. Cameras flashed as she stepped inside. The reporters called her name, but she didn't look back. She wasn't here to perform. She was here to watch how power behaved when it thought no one could touch it. Inside, Officer Brent Calhoun sat beside the prosecutor, posture loose, confidence unbothered. His uniform gleamed. His smile, that same half-curved smirk, was unscarred by consequence. Maya took her seat beside her attorney, Alan Weiss. He leaned over. Remember, today's preliminary. They'll argue to dismiss. A no, she murmured. He'll say the same lines. He's rehearsed his whole career. The judge entered. All rise. Brent's voice filled the room minutes later, calm, measured, perfectly composed. She was confrontational. I followed standard procedure. I feared escalation. Escalation, Alan repeated, voice dry. She asked why she was stopped. Brent met his gaze. Tone matters. Maya's jaw tightened. Her tone mattered. Not his force, not the lie about the taillight, not the cuffs on bare wrists. The prosecutor leaned in. Officer Calhoun has an exemplary record. 15 years of service. Alan raised an eyebrow. And 3 prior complaints of excessive force. All dismissed internally. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Brent's lips twitched. None substantiated. Alan's voice cut cleanly. Convenient. The judge lifted a hand. Counselors, keep 2 facts. Maya studied Brent. How easily he performed every tilt of his head, every polite phrasing, was rehearsed like theater. She'd seen the same choreography in boardrooms, men weaponizing composure, while women were told to stay professional. Alan whispered, "He's playing the jury, not the judge." "I know," Maya said softly. "He's always playing someone." The prosecutor presented the dashcam footage. The screen flickered to life, colorless, grainy, but damning. The arrest unfolded exactly as she remembered. Calm voice met with rising hostility, her hands raised, the moment his tone shifted from procedural to predatory. When the cuffs clicked, someone in the back gasped. The judge watched in silence. Brent didn't flinch. Double quotes. "Ms. Lennox," the judge said finally, "do you wish to make a statement?" Alan hesitated. We'd advised, but she was already standing. "Yes, Your Honor." Every head turned. "I complied with every instruction," she said. Her voice was steady, clear. "I was arrested for a crime that didn't exist." Officer Calhoun wasn't afraid. He was amused. "And if this system can't tell the difference between power and fear, then maybe that's what we're really on trial for." A sharp inhale rippled across the courtroom. The judge frowned. "Ms. Lennox, emotional testimony." "This isn't emotion," she interrupted. "It's record." The judge's gavel struck once. But the silence that followed wasn't order, it was awareness. Something had cracked. Outside, the crowd had doubled. News vans, microphones, the buzzing of drones overhead. Brent exited first, soaking in the flashbulbs like applause. He stopped beside her on the courthouse steps, lowering his voice just enough for her to hear. "You play the victim well," he said. She looked at him, unblinking. "You mistake restraint for weakness." He smirked. "Same difference in court. Not when people start reading contracts." He frowned. "What?" "Nothing you'll understand," she said, stepping past him. That night, news pundits dissected her testimony. Some called it powerful, others angry. The split was predictable. But in the footage replayed online, that brief moment after she spoke, there was something the cameras caught that headlines missed. Brent Calhoun's smirk faltering. Alan called later. "You shouldn't have spoken off script." "I didn't come to survive the system, Alan. I came to expose it." He sighed. "You've stirred the hornet's nest. They'll come harder. Then I'll come prepared." She opened her laptop again, fingers steady. Her next acquisition papers glowed on the screen. A merger negotiation she'd begun quietly weeks ago, buried behind holding companies and shell subsidiaries. The target, Durham and Peters LLP, the city's official defense counsel, the firm representing Brent in court. Maya leaned back, watching her reflection in the dark glass of the monitor. Power didn't shift when asked politely. It shifted when ownership changed, and ownership was something she understood better than any man in that courtroom. Rain traced the windows of Maya's office, soft against the glass, but relentless. The city skyline glimmered beyond, distant and cold, a view she'd once found inspiring. Tonight, it looked like judgment. She sat at her desk, laptop open, unread emails piling up. The merger acquisition with Durham and Peters LLP sat in her inbox, pending her digital signature. It was a quiet, technical step, a few lines of code in the corporate database, a few signatures under seal, but it would tilt an entire city's balance of power. Her phone buzzed. It was Alan again. "You've been silent for 48 hours, he said. "Press wants a statement. Investors are restless." "They can wait," she replied. "They're not built for waiting, Maya. They're built for security. You're making them nervous." "Good," she said flatly. Alan sighed. "This isn't just about Calhoun anymore. It's you versus the institution. That kind of war costs more than money." She stared out the window. "I'm already paying." After the call, she closed her eyes, but the silence didn't bring rest. Memory bled through, vivid as fresh paint. A college seminar, years ago, a professor introducing her as our diversity success story. A venture capital meeting where an investor had said, "You're remarkably articulate, the security guard at her own company asking to see her ID, the cold metal of handcuffs and the sound of Brent's laugh. The flashbacks overlapped, a carousel of humiliation disguised as civility. Her mother's voice drifted back from years ago. Baby, the world will smile at you with teeth. Maya pressed her palms to her eyes. For the first time since the arrest, she let herself cry quietly, without defense, without control. The knock at her office door broke it. Kyra entered, holding a folder. I didn't knock earlier, she said softly. You looked like you were still fighting something. Maya forced composure. Just ghosts. Kyra hesitated. You know, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You've already built more than most people dream of. This isn't about proof, Maya said. It's about inheritance. If I stay silent, they get to rewrite what happened again. Kyra nodded. Then let me help. Maya looked up. You already do. Kyra smiled faintly. Then maybe you should sign it. She placed the folder on the desk, the acquisition contract. Maya hesitated. Her reflection shimmered in the glass surface. A woman who had learned how to weaponize calm. Once this goes through, Kyra said, you won't just be fighting him. You'll be his employer. Maya's lips curved, not in satisfaction but clarity. No, I'll be the system he thought belonged to him. She picked up the stylus and signed. The document confirmed its completion with a soft ding. That sound, that quiet digital tone, felt louder than any gavel. Hours later, Maya met her mentor, Eleanor Hayes, at a dimly lit restaurant off Grant Avenue. Eleanor was one of the few who spoke to her without pretense, a retired lawyer, sharp-eyed and unfiltered. They're circling you, Eleanor said between sips of tea. Departments, press, the union. You've forced visibility. They hate that. I expected hate, Maya said. Eleanor leaned forward. And the cost. Maya's silence stretched. I don't sleep. I dream in evidence, she finally said. Every time I close my eyes, I see that laugh. I want to erase it. But the truth is, she paused, voice low, I don't want revenge. I want consequence. Eleanor's gaze softened. Consequence is the slowest kind of justice, but it's the only kind that lasts. Maya nodded, eyes fixed on the city beyond the window. Then I'll be patient. She stood, shoulders straight, breath steady. The rain had stopped. The glass no longer reflected a storm, only her. That night, she returned home, turned off every light, and sat in silence. The next morning, when the city woke, the press release went out quietly. Lennox Holdings announces full acquisition of Durham and Peters LLP, effective immediately. No one yet realized what it meant, but soon, every legal document in the courtroom would carry her firm's seal. Brent Calhoun's defense, his entire institutional protection, now belonged to the woman he'd arrested. The game hadn't just changed, it had been rewritten. The courthouse looked different that morning. Not physically, the marble steps were still cracked. The flag still hung motionless above the doors, but something in the air had shifted. The press was quieter. Even the officers stationed outside seemed uncertain about where to look. Maya walked through the lobby, her heels clicking with surgical precision. She carried no entourage, no PR shield, no fear. The silence around her wasn't respect yet, it was confusion. They sensed a change but didn't understand it. Inside, Brent Calhoun was already on the witness stand. His uniform was sharper than usual, his expression colder. The smirk had returned, faint but deliberate, like a mask he couldn't remove. Allen leaned toward Maya. The paper, official as of 9 court should have received the ownership notice by now. Then, let's begin, she said. The judge entered, called for order, and the second hearing commenced. The prosecutor launched into familiar language. Officer Calhoun acted within the bounds of protocol. The phrases sounded automated, bureaucratic echoes of every other case before it. Maya watched quietly, her expression unreadable. Allen rose for the defense. Your Honor, we request acknowledgement of a new disclosure before continuing. The judge frowned. What disclosure? Allen handed a sealed envelope to the clerk. Ownership certification. As of this morning, Durham and Peters LLP, counsel for the city and representing Officer Calhoun, is a wholly owned subsidiary of Lennox Holdings. A stillness swallowed the room. The prosecutor froze mid-sentence. What did you just say? The judge asked. Allen's tone was clinical. Effective today, Ms. Lennox is the majority owner of the firm representing the defendant. Brent's smirk twitched, confusion flickering behind his eyes. That's not, what does that even mean? Allen didn't look at him. It means, officer, the firm defending you now reports to her corporate structure. A murmur erupted across the courtroom. The bailiff called for silence. Cameras flashed. The judge leaned back, adjusting his glasses as if the act itself might rewrite reality. "Is this some kind of tactic?" he asked. "No tactic," Maya said softly. "Just timing." Brent stood abruptly, voice rising. "You can't. This is a conflict of interest." Alan turned toward him, unbothered. "Then you'll need to retain new counsel. Unfortunately, by the firm's policy, your case cannot proceed until internal representation is reassigned." The judge exhaled sharply. "This court will reassess." He struck the gavel, but the sound no longer carried authority. It sounded like retreat as people stood. Brent's gaze snapped to Maya. "You planned this," he hissed. She met his eyes without blinking. "I learned from you. Timing, tone, and paperwork. The system's real weapons." He stepped closer, jaw tight. "You think this makes us even?" She let out a quiet laugh. "You still don't understand. I'm not here to humiliate you. I'm here to unmask what protects you." He didn't answer. His breathing was uneven for the first time. He looked unsure of what uniform power meant. Outside, the news spread faster than wildfire. #Disclosure Day trended before she reached the courthouse steps. Reporters shouted questions. Did you buy the firm to control the case? Was this revenge? What happens next? Maya said nothing. She got into the waiting car, closed the door, and stared out the window as the courthouse shrank behind her. Alan sat beside her. They'll call it manipulation. They always do when a woman uses their rules better than they can, she said. You realize this forces the case into review. He'll be reassigned new counsel. It might delay everything. I'm not chasing speed, she replied. I'm building permanence. Alan studied her. You're colder than I've ever seen you. Not cold, she said. Clear. He nodded slowly. Then you've already won. She didn't respond. Winning wasn't the word she wanted. This wasn't victory. It was exposure, the kind that peeled away illusions, one paper at a time. Hours later, alone in her office, Maya watched live coverage of the courthouse. Brent exited through a side door, surrounded by flashing lights and noise. For the first time, his face was stripped of performance, pale, defensive, cornered. Her reflection overlapped his on the screen. The same city that once watched her, handcuffed, now watched him, questioned. Her phone buzzed. Kyra had sent a single message. He knows who owns him now. Maya typed back. No one owns anyone. That's the point. She closed her laptop, the faint hum of the building settling around her. The system hadn't fallen, not yet, but it had flinched, and that was the beginning of collapse. The city didn't sleep that week. Every channel replayed the courtroom footage. Every outlet dissected the ownership documents. Every commentator speculated whether Maya Lennox's corporate chess move had crossed some invisible moral line. But beneath the noise, something real began to shift. For the first time in 15 years, the police department announced an internal review of Officer Brent Calhoun's conduct. 3 journalists uncovered sealed complaints against him. Civil rights attorneys requested records. The same system that once guarded him now turned inward, uncertain which parts to protect first. In her office, Maya watched the chaos from a distance. Headlines, press briefings, the city's polished apologies. She didn't smile. There was no joy in seeing machinery crack, only the gravity of how much it took to make it move at all. Alan entered, dropping a stack of newspapers on her desk. You've started something you can't control now. I never wanted control, Maya said. Just accountability. He exhaled. They'll turn on you soon. The narrative's already mutating. Vindictive CEO, weaponized capitalism, revenge masquerading as justice. You know how they sanitize discomfort. She nodded. I built my life knowing what they do with inconvenient women. Alan hesitated. And what will you do with him now? Maya looked out the window. Nothing. The system will devour him, trying to save itself. 2 days later, Brent Calhoun sat in a department office, stripped of its authority. No badge, no gun, just paperwork. The blinds were closed, but the light still burned white on his face. His superior, Captain Rhodes, read from a printed memo. You're being placed on indefinite suspension pending investigation. Brent's jaw clenched. For what? Doing my job. Rhodes avoided eye contact. The department has to respond to the media pressure. It's out of my hands. Brent slammed a fist on the desk. This is politics. Rhodes leaned back. It's optics. You know the difference. The words hung heavy. The same excuse Maya had been given when the world doubted her pain. When Brent left the office, the hallway felt longer than usual. Every officer he passed looked away. For years he'd been untouchable. Now he was radioactive. He sat in his car for nearly an hour, the silence unbearable. On the seat beside him lay a printed article, Officer's Record Under Scrutiny After CEO's Legal Maneuver. Underneath the headline, his own photograph, the smirk that had once defined his arrogance, stared back at him like evidence. He crumpled the page. That night, he waited outside Maya's building, engine running, headlights dim. She stepped out an hour later, carrying a folder. Her steps were deliberate, unhurried. The rain had just started, small, cold droplets against pavement. Brent stepped from the shadows. You think this ends well for you? She didn't startle. You shouldn't be here. They're tearing me apart over a PR stunt. You used money to ruin me. Maya stopped a few feet away. You ruined yourself when you treated humanity like a hierarchy. He shook his head, voice raw. You planned this from the beginning. I planned survival, she said. The rest was just consequence. You don't get it, he said, stepping closer. I've given my life to this job. You expected immunity, she finished. That's what this was always about. You wanted the freedom to humiliate and the safety to walk away untouched. He stared at her, jaw trembling. You think they'll ever see you as equal? They're cheering you now, but wait until they need someone to blame. The system always resets. Maya's expression didn't waver. Then I'll build new systems. Rain ran down her hairline, the streetlights haloing around her like defiance itself. Brent's voice cracked. You destroyed me. No, she said quietly. I exposed you. There's a difference. He stood there, breathing hard, eyes empty. Then he turned and walked into the dock. Maya exhaled slowly. Her pulse steadied, but her chest felt hollow. Not relief, not triumph, just weight. The next morning, her phone lit up again. Kyra's message appeared. Breaking. Calhoun placed under formal investigation. Chief releases statements citing systemic misconduct. Maya stared at it for a long moment before typing back. And they'll call this progress, Kira replied. It's something. Something. The word felt too small, but maybe small was the only honest measurement for justice. Later that day, Maya received an invitation to a televised forum, Reimagining Justice, a conversation with Maya Lennox. She almost deleted it. Then, she remembered Eleanor's words. Consequence is the slowest kind of justice, so she accepted. That evening, she stood under the blinding studio lights, answering questions that were really rehearsed performances. What drives your fight? Do you forgive, Officer Calhoun? Do you think power corrupts on both sides? Her responses were calm, deliberate, almost cold. Forgiveness without change is theater, she said once, and I've seen enough performances. When the broadcast ended, a producer whispered, You sounded ruthless. Maya looked at her and said, No, I sounded free. By the week's end, Brent's name was removed from the department roster. Anonymous offices leaked his prior complaints. His face appeared on screens, not as a hero, but a case study. He tried to disappear, but the internet doesn't forget arrogance. Meanwhile, Maya's company stock wavered, then stabilized. Public opinion split cleanly down the middle. Half praised her brilliance, half accused her of weaponizing justice. She didn't respond to either side. One evening, she stood in the quiet of her office, the city lights reflected in the glass. Alan joined her. Do you feel vindicated? He asked. She thought for a long time. No, just awake. He nodded. Awake is the beginning of peace. She smiled faintly. Or the end of illusion. Below them, traffic hummed. Sirens distant, anonymous. The world hadn't changed, not really, but it had noticed. And sometimes, noticing was the first crack in a wall that had stood too long. Maya's office felt quieter now, not peaceful, just emptied of noise. The calls had slowed, the headlines had shifted to fresher controversies. The world had moved on, as it always did, hungry for new outrage, but she hadn't moved on, not really. She sat at her desk, the blinds half drawn, watching dust drift in the slanted light. Every sound, a distant siren, a muffled laugh from the hallway, came with an echo of something she'd fought to forget. The gavels cracked, the courtrooms, silence, the laughter that had once followed her out the door. Alan entered without knocking. He carried 2 cups of coffee. You've barely been home. I've been thinking, she said. He raised an eyebrow. That's never good for your blood pressure. She didn't smile. About what happens when the system you expose starts to reshape you. He handed her the cup. You sound like someone realizing justice has side effects. Doesn't it always? She murmured. They sat in silence for a while. The city outside kept its indifferent rhythm, Engines, horns, the occasional siren. Alan finally spoke. You've become a symbol. People look at you now and see a fight bigger than you ever planned to represent. Maya looked at him, eyes tired but clear. Symbols don't bleed, people do. That evening, she attended a memorial, a quiet gathering for victims of wrongful policing. No cameras, no speeches, just candles, photographs, and silence. As she walked past the rows of faces, a middle-aged woman caught her hand. You're Maya Lennox, aren't you? Maya nodded. The woman's eyes glistened. My son. He didn't get a trial. He just got a story they wrote for him. Maya's throat tightened. I'm sorry. The woman squeezed her hand. Don't be. You made them look. Even if it's only for a second, you made them look. The words stayed with her long after she left. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. No return address. Postmarked from a small town upstate. Inside was a single page written in block handwriting. I've lost everything. Job, pension, reputation. You got what you wanted. I hope it fills the hole. B.C. Maya read it twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. She didn't respond. For a long time she sat there, staring at her reflection in the darkened monitor. She didn't feel triumph. She didn't feel pity. Only the strange weight of consequence, the kind that doesn't declare victory, just changes gravity. Alan found her there an hour later. You look like you've seen a ghost. Maybe I have, she said softly. The kind you create when you fight too long. Months passed. The investigation closed. The department issued reforms, sensitivity training, new oversight committees. The news cycle packaged it as progress. But progress never called her at night when she woke gasping from dreams of the courtroom. The laughter, the gavel, the silence before the verdict. One morning, she visited Eleanor's grave. The air was sharp, the ground damp from last night's rain. She laid fresh lilies and knelt, her voice barely a whisper. They called it justice, she said, but it feels like accounting. The wind moved through the trees, soft, indifferent. I thought if I showed them what power looks like on the other side, they'd understand. But all they saw was a woman who fought back too well. She paused. You warned me, didn't you? Consequence isn't victory. She stayed there a while, eyes closed, breathing in the quiet. When she finally stood, her phone buzzed. Kyra again. New op-ed. They're calling you, the reluctant revolutionary. Maya exhaled. I never asked for a revolution. Kira replied instantly. No one ever does. It's what happens when you tell the truth too loudly. That night, Maya attended a charity gala, not for recognition, but obligation. Her company was still expected to perform benevolence. Cameras flashed as she walked the carpet. Reporters shouted questions. Is forgiveness possible? Do you feel remorse for what happened to Officer Calhoun? She didn't answer. Inside, the air was perfumed and polished. Music drifted faintly under the hum of networking conversations. A senator approached her. Ms. Lennox, I've been following your story. Remarkable courage. The system needs more voices like yours. Maya's smile was polite, hollow. The system prefers voices it can quote, not the ones it can't control. The senator laughed uncomfortably and drifted away. Alan leaned toward her. You keep talking like that, you'll never get invited again. Good, she said. Then, I'll finally rest. Later, she stepped out onto the balcony. The city glowed below, skyscrapers, like monuments to everything she'd built and everything she'd lost. She heard the door open behind her. Alan joined her, silent for a long time before saying, You ever wish you'd walked away before all this? She thought about it, about the humiliation, the headlines, the sleepless nights, the letter in her drawer. No, she said finally, because walking away means accepting their version of truth, and that's the first kind of death they give you. He nodded slowly. So what now? Now, she said, I start building something they can't dismantle. Weeks later, the department announced a new community initiative, one requiring partnership with Lennox legal consultants. Brent Calhoun's name never appeared again in public record. And yet, in quiet corners of the city, in law schools, in precincts, in courtrooms, people whispered her name differently now. Not as the victim, not as the CEO, but as the fracture that made the system blink. Maya didn't seek peace anymore. She sought permanence. One last scene, a young black intern at the courthouse stands. Outside the same courtroom where it all began, she's holding a file labeled Case Review Committee. She looks up at the glass door bearing the name Lennox Legal Partnership. A smile flickers. She steps inside. The echo of the gavel is gone now, replaced by voices that sound like the future. the day the city called for public testimony. The courthouse steps overflowed. Protesters, journalists, officers in stiff uniforms, all gathered under the sharp autumn sun. Banners waved, flashbulbs flared. The words "Justice Review Board hearing" glimmered in bold letters above the doors. Inside, Maya sat at the long mahogany table, microphone before her, documents stacked in precise order. Her company had been contracted to consult on systemic reform. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Across from her sat a panel of officials, each face polished into neutrality. Cameras streamed the proceedings live. A chairwoman leaned forward. "Ms. Lennox, this hearing isn't about your personal case, it's about structural evaluation. Can you remain impartial?" Maya met her eyes. "Impartiality built this system. I'm here to tell you what it costs." The room fell quiet. She continued, voice steady but edged. "You designed a framework that rewards silence. I broke it, and now you call me biased." Whispers rippled through the audience. One commissioner shifted uneasily. "We're not here to debate morality." "Then what are we debating?" Maya asked. "Procedures, optics, the language that disguises cruelty." A pause. The cameras zoomed closer. Her words hung in the air like a held breath. "Let me be clear," she said. "I'm not your symbol of reform. I'm your proof of rot." From the back row, Alan watched her. She looked composed, but he recognized the tremor beneath. The panel attempted to reassert order, calling witnesses, quoting statistics, but every number only deepened the silence. Finally, one official cleared his throat. "Ms. Lennox, are you suggesting we dismantle the institution entirely?" Maya's gaze didn't waver. "I'm suggesting you stop pretending it's sacred." Gasps broke out. A few reporters scribbled faster. She went on. "You've made justice into an altar where only certain people are allowed to kneel." "I just moved the altar." The chairwoman's voice tightened. "You've made serious accusations, Ms. Lennox. Do you have evidence of systematic intent?" Maya slid a folder across the table. Hundreds of complaints, sealed, ignored, redirected. "And one more thing." She pulled out a printed transcript, the courtroom footage of Calhoun's laughter. "This," she said, "is intent disguised as protocol." The screen behind her flickered to life, replaying that infamous moment, the smirk, the dismissive gavel, the murmured laughter of bystanders. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Even the air seemed to hesitate. Then Maya leaned forward. "You wanted impartiality. There it is." When the hearing adjourned, the courthouse spilled into chaos, reporters shouting, activists cheering, officers looking away. Maya descended the steps slowly, the sound of chanting swelling around her. Accountability now. No more silence. Alan met her halfway. "You just detonated the system on live television." She didn't answer. Her eyes scanned the crowd, the signs, the faces, the raw mix of fury and hope. "I didn't detonate it," she said at last. "I just stopped pretending it wasn't already burning." That evening, the footage went viral. Networks aired it on repeat. Editorials called it the moment the mask slipped. Others called it an act of defiance bordering on insurrection. Meanwhile, the police department released another statement, the kind written by lawyers, not humans. "We acknowledge the need for deeper reflection." Maya watched from her apartment, lights off, city glowing beneath her windows. Her phone buzzed, a message from Kira. "You did it." Maya typed back. "No, I revealed it." Days passed, then weeks. The board issued recommendations. Body cameras, revised training, civilian oversight, small steps, dressed as revolution. Brent Calhoun never resurfaced publicly. Rumors said he left the state. Others said he drank himself into obscurity. Maya didn't ask, but one afternoon, as she left her building, she saw a figure waiting near the curb, a familiar stance, head low, hands buried in his coat pockets. She froze. "Brent." He turned older, thinner, defeated. "You think this makes you clean?" "This makes me visible," she said. He laughed bitterly. "You built your empire on hate." She stepped closer. "No, on memory. There's a difference." His jaw tightened. "You ruined my life. I revealed yours." They stood in silence, cars passing between them like seconds. Then he said quietly, "They'll come for you next. The system always eats the loudest voice first." "Then I'll make sure it chokes," she said. He looked at her for a long moment, then walked away without another word. Later that night, Maya stood in her office again. The city was darker now, streetlights flickering like old film. She placed her hands on the glass and whispered to the skyline, "We're not done." Her reflection looked back, tired, scarred, unbending. Behind her, Alan entered. They've invited you to speak at the National Forum next month. She didn't turn. Let them wait. He hesitated. You've changed, Maya. She finally looked at him. No, I've just stopped apologizing for seeing Cleo. The next morning, newspapers carried a single image. Maya Lennox, standing before the courthouse, face unflinching. Headline reading, "The woman who made the system answer." Some praised her, others condemned her, but none could ignore her, and that, she realized, was enough. Weeks later, she met Kyra at a quiet cafe by the river. The world had softened again, but the scars remained visible, necessary. Kyra stirred her coffee. You know, every time I think they've learned, they just rebrand. Maya nodded. Then we rebrand the truth louder. Kyra smiled faintly. You never rest, do you? I can't afford to. They sat in silence for a moment, the sound of the river steady beneath them. Kyra finally said, "What happens now?" Maya looked out at the water, her voice low but certain. Now the story repeats, but this time, it remembers who wrote it. That night, back in her apartment, Maya opened her laptop and began drafting a proposal, a foundation for minority legal defense, named the Eleanor Project. At the bottom of the page, she typed one line. Justice isn't balance, it's memory that refuses to fade. She saved the file, closed the screen, and sat in the quiet dark, neither victorious nor defeated. Just awake. Outside, the city exhaled, restless, waiting. And somewhere in that noise, for the first time in years, Maya allowed herself to breathe.